November 10th, 1998.
It seemed as if the rain lasted forever. Streets turned into rivers. Rivers became torrential killers. The storm literally moved mountains, wiping towns and villages off the map. And only now, as the rivers finally begin to give up the dead and the scope of the disaster becomes clear, only now is the world pouring resources into what will become one of the biggest relief operations ever mounted. Tonight, Tormenta de Muerte, the storm of death.
From ABC News, this is Nightline. Reporting from Tegucigalpa, Honduras, Ted Koppel.
This is another one of those times when you wish that we used words a little more carefully. We talk about a disaster when 20 or 30 people are killed. Here in Honduras, by the time they finish accounting for all the missing, the number of dead will probably top 15,000. Aftermath is another word that doesn't quite do it. This is aftermath. It used to be a bridge connecting two parts of the Honduran capital. And this over here used to be a part of one of Tegucigalpa's leading shopping areas. It isn't anymore, of course. Aftermath also suggests that somehow the worst is over, and it isn't. They are what you think they are, and they are doing just what you think they are doing. The high winds and torrential rains that Hurricane Mitch brought to this region more than 2 weeks ago are long gone. But the grim task of finding and collecting and disposing of the dead is far from over. In some places where there are still the means to buy a decent casket, and where there are still friends or family members to do the job, burial remains part of a formal, if simplified, ceremony. It is no small thing in this place and in these times to bring a casket to the place where a loved one waits to be buried. Even surveying the aftermath has taken its toll. Cesar Castellanos was the newly elected mayor of Tegucigalpa. He was a giant of a man, well over 300 pounds, a neurosurgeon who once served as Minister of Health, but had only recently turned to politics. A week ago Sunday, he'd gone up in a helicopter to survey the damage. It was late in the day. The helicopter may have crossed another plane's flight path. In any event, the chopper crashed and Castellanos was killed. His was a huge funeral. For most of the dead, there are neither the people nor the resources to do much more than tidy up. They are trying, as best they can, to treat the dead with respect. But their principal concern has to be for the health of the living, and there are simply too many bodies to be disposed of in Honduras these days. Initially, the health workers carry the heavy plastic bags down into the pit, placing them carefully. Eventually, given the dimensions of the job, even that gives way to a less reverential, more efficient method. In this devoutly Catholic country, it goes against the grain to treat death casually. When there are thousands to be buried, there is very little time for ceremony. In one form or another, one at a time or by the truckload, it is important to bury the dead as quickly as possible. In Honduras these days, the vultures are waiting.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Chrysler.
Of all the pictures you've seen, the pelting rain, raging rivers, flooded homes, one has come to symbolize the devastation of this storm. One image captured by a Honduran camera and transmitted around the world. We went to that spot with the Minister of Tourism, Norman Garcia.
Rain, it really poured all the time.
A neighborhood on the edge of Tegucigalpa called Nueva Esperanza. In English, New Hope.
When the storm hit, the level of the river raised so much that it excavated the bottom of the slope, and all of a sudden an avalanche was formed, and all of the houses that were spread out or scattered around, like 75 houses to 90 houses, came down to the river and hit the river very badly, with the people inside probably, or some of them.
Garcia believes nearly 450 people were caught in this avalanche, people who had been warned to evacuate.
It's hard to tell because the local authorities were trying to understand, were trying to make the people understand that they had to evacuate. And people do not react to that, because they don't believe that anything like this would ever happen to them. This river was never known to be as brave, as angry as it was.
And they were afraid of what? Losing their possessions?
They didn't want to leave their possessions, yes, absolutely.
For more than a week, they searched here trying to find and recover bodies. Mexican rescue teams with sniffer dogs scoured the hillside and left markers where they believed a survivor might be trapped or, more likely, a victim buried. Relatives could only watch and pray. And then, 3 days ago, last Saturday, a rescue team started working one area halfway down the steep incline. Initially, they removed chunks of rubble. Then, slowly, carefully, as though working an archaeological dig, they began probing and scraping around a form in the mud. Word spread throughout the neighborhood. They had found something, but who or what was it? The work went on for hours, until gradually, slowly, a shape began to emerge. It was clearly lifeless, but the rescuers finished the job with infinite care, as though afraid of inflicting any further harm. Finally, they pulled it free. It was a very small body, the sight of which sent a shudder through the crowd.
Un niño.
Un niño, they said. A boy. They would guess his age to have been about 10. For all too many people here, there will be no individual burial. Theirs will be nameless graves beneath the avalanche. What about out in the country?
I would be guessing if I told you that everything is under control. There are still evacuating people from hills and roofs and treetops.
Still to this moment?
Sir. Yes, sir. At this point in time.
I want to stop on that for a moment, because you're telling me that people literally have been hanging onto trees now for 8 days, 9 days?
Oh, yes, Ted. Remember that when we started out operation, the operation to rescue people, we only counted with 14 choppers, our own Air Force, which is as much as we have. And we had also 6 helicopters, 2 from Guatemala, 2 from El Salvador, and 2 from Nicaragua, and that was it. And we had to wait until the rain stopped. We couldn't fly.
But again, I'm trying to envision how someone hangs on the top of a tree, or for that matter, on a rooftop.
Believe me, Ted, I don't understand it either. It's just the will to live, I guess.
Even as we spoke, in the river behind Minister Garcia, 3 people were wading back and forth through the water, carrying bundles of wood.
And obviously the whole family is helping out. I mean, this is people who are homeless. We have close to 1.5 million homeless people at this point in time in Honduras, all over Honduras, not only Tegucigalpa.
Look here. Everything we had was taken away from us because of this disaster. Then we ended up on the street. We don't have jobs. We don't even know what to do for food. Then we came here to pick up wood and to burn for fires because we didn't know where else to go. We were ruined because of the river, because of the disaster of the flood.
I go out to wash clothes because we need to support our children. We have 3 children.
Show me where your house was.
There, where the green door is. There was a lot of us that were on the edge. We were a little more in the back. The whole edge came down. This came down. Everything. It all came down.
It rained for 6 days and 6 nights. It was always raining. It didn't stop for 1 day.
It just started falling. There was no time to do anything. Chairs, tables, everything. The only thing we were able to save were the kids.
Tables, everything.
They are living temporarily with another family in another shack on another hillside. He stays with the children. She does laundry, earning $1 for every 12 pieces. She also has a part-time job with the city, cleaning streets. Their friend, the woman in the blue dress, mumbles endlessly about the rain. 6 days and 6 nights, she says, over and over. 6 days and 6 nights. It was a reunion no one dared expect. Her aunt never believed that Laura Isabel could survive the flood that washed her home away. Laura herself had even less reason to expect that she would survive. Her village was located in Santa Rosa at the mouth of one of the biggest rivers in Honduras. The rain brought on by Hurricane Mitch sent the river over its banks, steadily rising up the walls of the village houses. Here, where this stick protrudes from the water, is roughly where Laura's house once stood. Laura, her husband, and their 3 children climbed onto the roof, and still the water rose.
We were thrown into the sea. At that moment, there was no difference between the rain, the river, and the ocean. I was still holding my baby. Then the sea took him from my hands. I was pulled under the water, and I had to force my way up to the surface.
Laura's house and the houses of many others in the village were swept out to sea.
The houses were breaking because of the force of the water. This is where the road was.
She climbed first onto a floating tree. Then she grabbed a wooden plank and bound the 2 together with floating debris. She sang to pass the time. She ate a pineapple and a coconut that she found in the water. For the next 6 days, ocean currents would carry her more than 50 miles out to sea.
I would talk to my children, though I knew they were dead. When I slept for a few moments, I would dream about them. But when I opened my eyes, it wasn't true. It was just a dream. I was sad. I knew that nobody was going to rescue me.
She spent the days praying until finally she was spotted by a plane. It sent down flares to mark her position so that a British helicopter could make the rescue.
They threw something. I thought it was a bomb. I thought the fumes would kill me.
We immediately dispatched our helicopter to the area, and they picked up on a winch wire a lady of about 36 years old and brought her back to the ship.
The helicopter brought her to the HMS Sheffield, a British ship patrolling the waters in search of a missing American yacht. The sailors were convinced that Laura was a survivor from the yacht's crew.
They kept asking me, where are the other people? Where is the yacht? And I said, no, I'm a hurricane survivor. I was pulled out to the sea by the river. My 3 children and husband died. I made a little raft so I could stay alive.
The Royal Navy brought her here to a hospital in the town of Trujillo, not far from Santa Rosa. They gave her clothes, some keepsakes, and a letter. You have great strength beyond compare, it reads in part. Your bravery in the face of adversity is an example to all of us. It has been an honor and a rare opportunity to have you on board. I'll be back with more in a moment.